back on Princess Court with Alexandra again, and we both realize that we're the only people in the world who can talk about 9 versus 4 relationships. Well, John and I are pretty different 4s, but still. And you and my partner are fairly different, but not. I mean, you're both Bermuda, and actually have a similar overlay. He's 147, you're 145.
Yeah.
So
and he's
self-parasocial.
And
Self-parasocial,
I'm
yeah.
social. So, okay, sexual blind, yeah.
But one of the things that we were talking about, this just applies to hexad versus attachment, but I guess when we talk about it, it'll be maybe more specific to these typings. But just the thing that you said about attachment types having a fairness system about who gets to have a location when, and hexad types automatically sharing location and assuming that other people are doing the same. Well, I've dated a lot of 9s, actually, a lot of Bermuda 9s. And this is an issue because, well, and actually even just with friends, even friends that are 9s that have some hexad fixes, it's this sense of like, they really like that they always know where they stand with me and they can appreciate that I'm really honest about sharing my location. But then there are times where there's this resentment that I always get to and they don't.
Right.
And I've somehow stopped them just by doing it from sharing their location. And that makes me in turn feel really bad because I'm like, nobody told you that I actually want you to tell me. But then what happens is that they'll say it and it'll come out in this like strained way that's like bubbling with anger. And I take it now badly because I'm like, why can't you just tell me? Yeah, you know what I mean? Because now
without
it's
all
worse.
of this extra tension.
Exactly. That like, well, I don't like this, or you always get to do what you want to do, or something, and I'm just like,
Yeah. It's been the position is being delivered when it's already like just like rife with tension and resentment, and there's just like this when it could just be a matter of fact, like I want pizza, I don't want Chinese food.
That's it.
But instead it comes out, and then instead by the time it does come out, or at least I've seen this pattern within myself, and I've really had to work on it because I see how it causes more distress, and we can get into like my internal experience about it too. But what happens is that by the time, what happens, at least in my relationship, when this happens, what happens is John is aware of that I'm upset somehow. And what's happening with me is I'm trying to not make that aware because I'm trying to not be a problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so but it's like seeping into the air and he's picking up on it. And he's kind of like, what's fucking going on with Alexandra? And I'm like, nothing's going on. Everything's great. I'm smiley. We're going to get Chinese food that I don't want. Let's go do that for sure. That'll be fun for you. But that's what matters, that kind of stuff. And then by the time my location does come out, I'm already pissed and I've already have this entire story
You're eating
on
the
how
food.
I'm not being,
Yeah.
And I already have this entire story on how like I wasn't looked after and I wasn't like I wasn't, my location wasn't sought after, stuff like that. Just to the point where it's a bigger deal than it needed to be. Like all I needed to do was say, I want pizza instead. And then it's just a matter of like, okay, heads or tails, which one are we going to do?
Yeah. And of course, like, even for somebody like me and somebody like John that understands the Enneagram, I think the trick is with the type personality patterns is that it's like almost doesn't matter how attentive I want to be to this problem, where I'll be like, what do you want? Or like, what do you, like, I don't know, like, are you sure you want this? Doesn't seem like you really like, and it's like the more attention that you actually put on a 9 to actually offer the location, sometimes it just makes them lose it even more. So it's like, it doesn't even matter if I ask sometimes, because a 9 is so good. It's like they already sense my location. I don't have to say I want this, food, I want that food. They can already feel what I want, and that takes over. And so it's like now they can feel that I want something, and I'm saying, hey, do you want something different? And it's no, like, I whatever you want.
Yeah, I can already sense what this is from the perspective of a 9. I can already sense what the correct answer is. And so I'm just going to be working with that location, and it's already set. That's already what's wanted. So I'm just going to blend into that instead. Yeah.
And that's like, it's attachment, but it's also gut. It's like,
it's very gut.
That, and this is actually maybe a blind spot for me being very like gut last, is like, I don't realize that my location, or like, when I'm like, I'm not really sure. Like I'm open to discussing my location. Maybe there is a part of me as well that's like kind of leaning somewhere, but it's not that strong, but it's like it's in the air already and the nines absorbed it. So they're not gonna,
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, because I do sense sometimes that 4 like needs to have a location, whether or not it's like whether or not it actually cares about it.
That's
Sometimes
it,
like
yeah.
it always does.
Yes,
Like they always do, but at the same time it's like I feel like that works for Hexat across the board. Like there is just a need for a location, whether or not there's a lot of like die hard, I will die on this hill energy for it. And 9 will take it constantly as this is what he wants.
Yes, it's set in stone. Yeah.
Yes, when really it's not set in stone. It's just like this is just the first stone I can kind of see, and it's absolutely a movable position, but it just needs another position to move it.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, I have a 6 fixed too, so I actually do, I don't know, think out loud and change my mind a lot or whatever. Sometimes where it's like, so the 9's like, oh, I could sense that was your location, but it's like, oh, but it changed, and it's like because I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just
thinking out loud. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know, it's fine. This applies to 9 maybe very specifically, and maybe most of all Bermuda, but it's the kind of thing where it's like it's not intentional at all, but there's a gaslighting that happens where you're just like, I know you're upset, I know it, okay, I know that you are, and it'll just be because, and I'll like try to be specific because of these very specific signs. And so you try to point to the 9 like, well, you're not making eye contact with me, or you're sighing, or you're not touching me, or you're doing this or that, and they'll just be like, well, I guess if you say that's what's happening, then it's like no.
God, hearing this like from the perspective of somebody that can like articulate it really well is so embarrassing because that is exactly what happens.
Yeah, because you're still like, I'm not causing any disruption in the atmosphere. You are telling me I'm not doing anything, which is impossible if you're a living human breathing being. But a person's like, well, I love you and I notice what you're doing, so therefore I can sense based upon knowing you. I don't know what is happening. I just know that this is occurring.
That something is happening. Yes. Yeah. And then what can happen on the other end of that experience is like, because obviously that's happened to me a bajillion times.
Yeah.
Where John is sensing that I'm like off somehow and I'm just not ready to come out with it. Sometimes because I don't know yet. Sometimes it's like I don't have the specific articulation because I haven't let myself get angry enough to the point where I can tease it out. Which is an interesting hack for all 9s and Bermudas of any type. Like letting yourself get angry really does help you articulate it. And then you can, how do I say this? You can kind of manage the anger to a point where it then becomes just a conversation and not an argument.
Right.
But anyway, what happens before, I'm able to do that is John will sense that I'm upset somehow. And I am taking his noticing as like, oh, I'm being a problem now. Like now I'm making him uncomfortable.
So you have to go
and
further.
So yes. And so all of my like bullshit attachment stuff activates and I'm like, okay, I need to fit in more to the like the
right, because it's a stress moment.
I need what is the word I'm looking for? I need to like flow into what's happening even more. I need to be okay with what's happening even more. But then of course to a 4 who's just like constantly trying to provoke your location because what is important to him is going to be to feel what is important to me as far as it relates to our relationship. And there is like a projection, at least in my experience with John, there is like a projection that happens where because he feels his location is so important, he projects that I must also feel like my location is very important. And then when I'm not giving that up, it feels like this sort of underground war that's happening. When really what it is I'm just trying to keep things comfortable until I like have the space and time to articulate what it is that I'm feeling.
Right, and I think now I don't know if John actually might not be like this just because of the 5 wing, 5 6, but I'm not. I got 6 and 7 and 1 wing 2, which are both very intrusive. So
right.
So it's kind of like my journey has been to just be like like what you just said, I'm projecting that my location is my whole personality. It's everything. Like, right. Like you said, fours have to have one, even if I'm not sure, I'm just like, well, I got to find one. Like,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
have to
Yeah,
have it.
that's my sense too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
you're
funny.
right. No, my sort of development journey has been to just understand that a lot of the times when I'm pressing on something and it's like, you get this gaslighting, which is not intentional. So it's annoying, but I'm not like mad about it. It's just like annoying, but I just have to be like, okay, one, this person's location might not be that important to them ever. It just may not matter that much. They might just honestly want to just be 9 and keep doing 9 today. And that's fine. And then also, not only is it possibly not that important to them, but they actually might, like you said, not even know what it is. And the more that I press it and the more that I feel like I'm giving space, it's like I'm not giving, the only way you can give somebody space is to, like, I don't know, stop existing, which is impossible sometimes, especially if you just like live together. And even sometimes like I'm going out for 2 hours, I come back, they still don't have it because they still just blanked on it for 2 hours. And then I'm back and it's the same problem. Like, you know, it's like, there are times where I'm just like, they don't know. Or they're gonna say something just to keep the conversation going, which makes me react because, again, I'm assuming that what people say is their actual location and it wasn't even what they meant. And then they'll say something different later and be like, oh, that's the actual location. Like that, because they, like you said, they allowed themselves to get angry enough to be like, okay, I think I know what I feel about this. And then by that time, I'm just like, that was it.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah, that is so true. There have been dynamic. Yeah. Okay. How do I want to articulate what I'm thinking of? Because there's like a whole sense, there's a whole like experience sense that came up around that, where sometimes the thing that has like disrupted me is not a big deal at all. I just have not articulated it yet.
Yes.
But my lack of being able to articulate it in the moment, or you know, because sometimes it's not just a lack of being able to articulate it. Sometimes it is like a lack of willingness to articulate it because I'm just prioritizing the flow right now, and I don't need the whole day to stop just because, I don't know, just because I'm feeling off somehow.
Yeah.
But then, of course, like the whole day doesn't need to stop. That is just like the drama of the 9 mentality.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like the whole day is not going to stop. It's just
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But something that can happen with the 4 and 9 dynamic is the longer the 9 takes, the more frustrated the 4 gets in trying to extract it to a point where that no big deal thing may become a big deal because now the reactivity 4 has been provoked, which is pulling the 9 back even more, or which is activating, like provoking the 9's anger more. So then sometimes it can be this like anger versus frustration battle on just where we wanted to go to eat. And it becomes like a principle thing of like, well, you should have just told me, or of like, you know, the argument can be really dumb because it can be like, well, you should have just told me, well, you should have been more sensitive to me, that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. No, it ends up being that's scenes from my relationship. It's both, you know, this is, I should disclaimer too that this is very 9-wing-1 centered because both of the people 9-wing-1 and 4 are highly sensitive types in some way, like if for different ways. So the arguments between those two types, and maybe like this could apply to anybody who's, say, a 9 dating somebody even with a 4 fix who maybe also is a 9 or something like that, but it's a lot of like nitpicky, like Cold War stuff.
Totally.
You know, like if you're, say, a 6-wing-7 dating a 7-wing-6, this probably isn't how you fight, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The kind of like, there's a lot of like, 4s don't like to do this, but there is a lot of like, you hurt my feelings. And obviously with 9-wing-1, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I'm really happy you articulated that because that is a sense I've never been able to, or maybe just like never tried to put words around. But yeah, 4 is sensitive. It's just, and obviously 9 is sensitive, but the expression of that sensitivity is very different because the expression of 4 sensitivity is usually with like, you know, it's frustration. It's like it's a certain sandpapery type of anger. And the 9 sensitivity is more of like the quintessential sensitivity where they'll turn in on themselves and get quiet. Yeah. And more of like you've said silent tears once before that made me just want to die because that's just very true.
Yeah. Well, no, my ex would literally, I would turn, I mean, he was ultra, like, too sensitive. It just didn't work. Like, I would
Yeah.
turn and there'd be like a tear streaming down his face. And I'd be like, I don't, I don't know. I don't know what I, you know,
How did this happen?
yeah.
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 Oh man. Yeah, and there is something with 4 too that I've noticed. Like, 9 has the whole, what is it? The holy virtue, I don't know, one of those things. Holy love is something with 9, where 9 is just always wanting to dive back into like the ocean of
Right.
union and connection and love and togetherness and all of that stuff. And 4, I think, is doing that in its own way, but it's not trying to melt back into like this bigger ocean. It's trying to have really individual contact with the person they've selected, I think, regardless of
Yes.
instinct, actually.
Yes.
But it is
yes.
because it's the heart center, it's going to be very specific. Like, it just is. The heart is specific. And then on top of that, because it's 4, which is so narrow, that adds even more specificity to it. So the sensitivity that I've experienced from 4 comes from what is perceived as me taking myself away, actually.
Yes.
Like, me disappearing
yes.
feels like taking myself away.
Huge.
And then,
yeah.
And then and what can be confusing is the expression of that sensitivity is usually frustration, which feels like a problem to a 9. And so then a 9 is to hide more, you know? So sometimes it's just like we're trying to meet in the exact same way, but it just gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
And this is where like the Enneagram has really been helpful, because sometimes I've had to push myself into getting angry faster so that we can just have a normal conversation.
Get the frustration, boom, and then there's nothing to be frustrated about. We solved it, and the 4 has to be neutralized because I can't be frustrated. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a recent sort of bicker that we had, and it was the kind of thing where we were out and he was overheating and uncomfortable, and 9s hate to say, especially self-social 9, there is this thing about like being strong enough to withstand anything. So it's like even hard to be like, I'm totally uncomfortable. True. I don't like this, right? But we're out and I'm like, all I sense is that he's disappearing, like fading away. Because this is what happens when 9s do this thing, when they like get inside themselves and they're trying to figure out how to experience anger or express it. They literally are like, you know that scene in Back to the Future where he's looking at the picture and it like starts to fade?
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know
yes.
Perfect. But you know what I'm talking about? It's literally that.
It's a good example. Yeah.
Where are you going? Yeah. And again, that's registers as a provocation. So no, I'm getting frustrated and angry. You know what I mean? And then it was this kind of like back and forth. And then he finally expressed that anger, and I took it as an assault on me, which it wasn't at all. It was just like mostly about himself, but I was starting to be intrusive and like push back on like, where are you going? Why like, okay, let me touch you. Let me try this. And it was just like, I'm uncomfortable. And I was like, okay.
Right.
And then I was like, what did we just argue about? Like nothing, but it was just, it was exactly that dynamic.
Yeah, totally. And of course, like the 9, like unwillingness / inability to articulate themselves in the moment can come across like insensitive, actually. Like it's just like you're not willing to engage with me.
Yes.
Which is an interesting thing that I think like 9s need to hear. Like it does come across that way. 9 all has like a kind of ego around being like very sensitive and very considerate and very aware of what's going on with people's feelings. But the self-effacement aspect, when too like egoically attached to, is actually a self-absorption, and you are abandoning the person that you're with by being that way.
Yeah. And on that point though, I think that there's this part of 9 that is like, I'm everyone else all the time. I don't give a fuck. In this, I'm abandoning you, fine. Like there's some part unconsciously that's like, you know what? I don't care, because all I do is, I mean, that's not the right word. That sounds, I don't know, 2-ish or 6-ish or something. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, for once, I'm putting like apathy, that wall. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm putting this wall down because I am just so permeable all of the time. I don't know how to have one foot in, one foot out. I need to either be in you or just like vault comes down, and you're knocking on that vault, and I've been in you all day. And you can't give me this few minutes to just disappear or whatever. But again, at least from my perspective, I'm just like, I didn't ask you to do any of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're, this isn't, Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there have been, I don't run into this super often because I think this is where the benefit of John's like being double withdrawn and a social blind. Like when
Yeah.
I feel energetically exhausted, I usually have the space, he's usually not
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
ask more of ask more of me. And then when I am able to say it, he can usually just be like, okay, cool, I'm social blind.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
do something social blind.
Yeah.
But I do experience that with people in general, like
Yes.
to where I feel like I have been on, even if it hasn't been in an engaged, like super obvious way, I've been very sensitively tuned to what's going on. And then past a certain point, I'm just like tired.
Yeah.
I'm fucking tired. I
Yeah.
don't want to do it anymore. I need you to just let me hide in my phone or be in the corner, mute and just observing. I don't want to engage right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
is,
And one,
that's interesting.
yeah, like, so you're the social one and he's the social blind one. So there's like, I guess, a different kind of balance there. Whereas like in my relationship, like it's self-social and I'm the one who's social. So there's a larger, say, imbalance or polarity, let's say, where I find it difficult to like, it's the the thing with social sexual, and I like David's comparison of calling it 7-ish, because there is a lot of stuff that you can say sounds 7-ish, where I'm like, kind of like a spark plug that's like has to plug into something, and it's just looking somebody entertain me, somebody do something, I need to guy like you're just kind of, because you can't, the thing about self-pres is that you get this sense that you look at self-pres people or even just self-pres middle and they're just like, well, I'm in here now and that's
totally
fine. I'm not very good at that. But it's weird because I'm still a withdrawn type, so I'm still doing all this withdrawn stuff, but I'm kind of spark plug looking around. So it's like sometimes there are times where, say if I were self-pres, we would just be sort of naturally giving each other space. I'm not very good at that. But at the same time, because of that polarity, he is somebody who actually needs a spark plug sometimes, or else it'll just end up being like a rock that just sits there and never, you know what I mean? So it's like,
two objects never overlapping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have another 4 versus 9 thing that we can go to. Well, just the kind of like positive type versus negative type thing. Now this is, it's complicated because some 9s are super negative and some 4s, I would say 4s are like positive, but they're not. I would say that it's not this kind of like, everybody attaches everything dark onto 4, and we've done already stuff on this. Right. I don't think 4 is that dark. It does create an emotional landscape of sort of separateness and frustration and some negativity, but it's not like I don't know. If you look at somebody like Prince or whatever, like people who we've typed that are 4s, he's not actually that negative. He's fun and whatever.
No, he's just very separate.
Yeah, right. Yep. And both John and I are doing like podcasting work, which is like, you can't be that negative. So there's obviously like, we're just human beings, right? But still, there's a sense with 9, the sense of positivity is, I don't want to create a problem or disturbance. Right. And it's like got positivity. And with 4, the negativity is, I am separate from everything else around me. So one of the things that I think is, well, I don't know. I'm not trying to figure out. I don't know if it's actually a problem in a relationship. I think it helps. I think overlay. This is where overlay makes a big difference, because this is like I think if you're 147 or 145, you can like handle this kind of thing. But I just say a lot of negative shit. And I'm just bringing, like, it's luckily most of the things I say, I think because Bermuda with 1-4 is just kind of like, yeah, I was thinking that. I just didn't say it, or like you unearthed it. And, but there are a lot of times where I have to temper my own, and I do this with everybody, even the people I love the most in the whole world, where I look at them and I'm like, you disgust me in this moment. I can't, it's so violent. Like, okay, it's not
like visceral.
Visceral. Yeah. Where like, for example, I mean, we joke and I try to make a joke about it now, but like, I'll like cook this nice meal or whatever. And he's like, this reminds me of like pizza flavored goldfish. And I like want to take his plate and like throw it off the balcony. And I'm like, he does it now, I think, just to piss me off. But I'm just
sure,
like,
of course.
Like you get that, like, this, like, there's this like energy that 4s get where they're just like,
oh yeah, very disdainful and
just,
like, I can't believe I have to be here.
Yeah, it's just like, I can't. The only reason I know is because so many people have clocked me on that. Like, they're like, you look like a bitch, and I'm like, Okay. I don't know. But it's this kind of like, that was more of a joke. Like I would just laugh at him in that situation. But there are honestly situations where I'd be like, I actually get so mad. I'm trying to think of one where like, okay, one, and this is so, I felt so bad. Like I was so angry and it was so stupid. But I was like, oh, I want to make this like lemon chicken thing. And or it had mushrooms in it. I forgot that he like doesn't like lemon in chicken. It's just like something he doesn't like. But he was just like, oh, I'm just gonna have my chicken tonight, which is like plain trash chicken breast in the oven, which is like neither of us thinks it's good. He just does it to eat protein or whatever. But I got I was so angry. Now he only said this because he was like, oh, he really like he was just doing the 9 thing. He's like, oh, he really wants this. I don't want to say that he can't have it or disappoint him. So I'm trying to find a way to be like, I don't want to eat that chicken without saying I don't like it or I don't want it. Which honestly, if it's just been like, oh, I don't like lemon, can we find another one? I would have been like, oh, okay, that sucks. I might have still. This is the thing when 9s say their location, they have to accept that sometimes the person will actually react badly because that's just.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Like
it's
it's
a reaction.
It's just a reaction. Yeah. It's just like it doesn't mean. And then he'll be like, oh, I won't say that ever. I shouldn't have said it. And I'm like, no, it's.
Right.
I'm glad you said it. You just have to deal with the fact that I'm upset for a second. It's fine. Anyway, sorry. Back to my story. It was that kind of thing where I looked at him and was like, so angry that his tastes would be so low that he would choose something plain. But you don't understand, it took me a long time to access that that's why I was mad. And I was acting like such a brat. And I was so angry at myself after. And then after I was like, how do I even, because we try really hard to communicate. I was like, how do I even tell him this is what, I mean, I sort of did. I was just like, I'm sorry. Like it made me annoyed that you wanted something crappy over this like nice gourmet thing that I wanted to make. And that made me judge you. And that was so stupid because whatever, like you're my partner. The judgment, like we're past that. We live together. But I do this with everybody. Like somebody will say something, my friend will say something and I'm like, that language you used was inarticulate. And I'm like, again, I literally have to pull back and they're talking and I'm like not there because I like can't believe that. And I have to just literally be like, no, you love this person. You love this person. Everything's fine. Like I don't know if that this is maybe more 4-wing 3 more social, but I think all 4s do this in some way. I mean, I feel like I see John do it with like people's ideas and belief systems and things like that.
He does it with everything.
Of
course.
Yeah.
There's not a day that goes by that John's not just casting ooze on everything.
Right. Yeah.
It is funny. I think so I have the 4, I have the 1, 4, 5 overlay. And so I don't know how much that actually changes things, but my way of dealing with it is it actually doesn't usually bother me too much, but I will make fun of it a lot.
Right.
Like we'll go out and it'll be like, let's go assault John's senses and drink shitty beer and dance to shitty and be around shitty people. And it's like, he just doubles down on it. And he's like, yeah, it's shitty. It's all shitty. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to go have a shitty time. And it's a fun time. It's just like the way of making it, the way of like acknowledging his locations, I guess, while also teasing that it's like not a big deal and we can have like a good time still with these like things that aren't up to par.
Yeah. And that's in a way, maybe, I don't want to speak for him, but that might be secretly what sexual 4 in any context, like the sexual instinct on 4 is hoping for, because the sexual instinct is really trying to almost like derail your own type structure, because your own type structure is you, and you're kind of going into the world and being like, something take me out of this, rip me open. And ripping open a 4 is like, doing something wild and tasteless. This is why I think sometimes 4s have this weird chemistry with like DJs or people that are just like, yeah, it's fun, take your shirt off. Like it's just this kind of like, it's like so irritating, but you're just like, you're kind of, it's not the kind of thing you could live with necessarily, but you are kind of secretly hoping that someone can, or something can break through. I mean, I do this even with like, sometimes the music I like the most is the one that's like, it's kind of stupid, but like it might actually be profound at the same time. Like I'm hoping that it'll rip me open a little bit, like rip open my boundaries, which is, everybody's kind of, even if you have a sexual blind spot, I think that's what's happening at 4.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there is a way that 4 is trying to, how do I say this? Like, I mean, this is like major 9 bias, so we'll see how this lands. But I think every type is trying to like rejoin other or like reconnect to everything, or like re-experience some kind of union that we've all been like thrust out of at birth. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
four obviously has this identity, and I think four has this I think four thinks that its way to achieve that is to locate themselves and then trust that everyone else will
Yes.
locate themselves, and then have, there kind
And
of be
maybe be on
some
the same page with someone else's actual location. Yeah.
actual location. Correct. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think sometimes the value that I can bring is being, triple attachment. There is this sort of triple earth kind of triple on earth and in reality, knowing what's going on, kind of thing that can bring some, how do I say this? I don't, comfort is not the right, it's also too charged a 9 word, but can bring some like reality to him that can loosen some of his structures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, of course,
Yeah.
if something activates that fixation again, then he's very suddenly snapping back to like, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
awful. I'm stupid. I'm going back and never coming back
Yeah.
out in the world
I have to
again.
leave. I have to get out of here.
I
Yeah.
have to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some
No,
like
it's true.
loosening and like undoing in like a, in a way that does feel good. Like I see that it feels
Absolutely.
good. It's
Yeah.
outside of the identity, but like I can see that you're like relaxed and enjoying yourself right now in an environment and in
Yes.
engagements with things that were not in your image.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. No, and I really like. It's always going to be an oscillation where I'm just like, ugh, I just
Mm-hmm.
did that, or oh my god, I can't believe I'm doing this. But yeah, no, I do. I'm that's the thing I think I personally love about nine is that they are embodying that, but in a way that's so gentle, that's not going to make you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I've had really good, say, sex with sevens where it's just kind of like, oh, you're so fucking annoying, and there's like all this sparkage, but that gets annoying for me really fast because we're
Mm-hmm.
both
Mm-hmm.
frustration types, and I can't handle an onslaught of like, just do it, just get into it. Like, no, 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 I'm not
Oh,
doing
right.
that. Just get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? With nine, it's sort of like, you know, here's a
Let's
welcoming
see.
open space for, yeah, let's just see, like, you don't, and also, you know, I'm not going to make fun of you, or I'm not going to like I won't even
Right.
maybe know. There are times where you might tease them, but that's like a different story when it's like really obvious. But there are times where I'm allowing myself to do something with a nine that they don't even realize is a broken boundary for me. So I'm not going to be
Mm.
mocked for it, which again might be my like social and six fix perspective where I'm like, someone will look at me. Like I can't have people look at me doing this thing that doesn't, you know,
Mm.
that's
Mm-hmm. I
not
see.
me. It's like worse if you see me doing it or whatever. Like it's somehow even worse because now you're gonna make a comment on it, and I'm like, oh, I hate you. I hate this thing. I hate all of this. I have to get the hell out of here. You know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with you being double image too, that
Yeah.
sensitivity might be
It's bigger. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's bigger. Yeah, it's bigger on an image level. I think the 4-5 level is more, it's because it's also pretty, I would say, visceral. Like the snap out, like the retraction is also really
Yes.
intense due to a double withdrawnness, especially
Yeah.
being on the bottom of the Enneagram. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different quality.
Well, and it's interesting. Just speaking of, because we were just talking about how the nine disappears. I mean, these are two withdrawn types doing a retraction in a completely different way, and
Mm.
it's gonna come across as difficult for whoever's with them in different ways, right? In some way, if you really, no matter what type you are, if a four or four fixer is with you and they're doing that thing, it depends. You might be like, oh, they're mostly still here or whatever. That's just them. It's fine. But you might just be like, fuck, fine, okay, fuck you. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like,
mm-hmm,
and I've had
mm-hmm.
bad experiences with a lot of people, mostly like DJs, again, people that are like want to keep the vibe up on dates and stuff in the past, where I didn't understand that I was doing that, and they just be so put off. Like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Like, why can't you know? It's because it's this withdrawn for. It's like you. I think it's hard to see with four or even five as withdrawn types because they can talk a lot and they can actually be extroverted if they have to be. But it's that is where it's the strategy of like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand any of this. I could say it out
Mm-hmm.
loud. It's
Mm-hmm.
still a withdrawn strategy because I'm pulling away from what's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
as a
Yeah,
separate
totally.
being, separate image. Yeah.
Totally. Do you have experiences where you are pulling away and your 9 is sort of activated by that pull away? I mean, I can start
Yes.
just like that happens with us
Yeah.
every now and again, and it's interesting because we're both very sensitive to each other when
Yeah.
whoever does it.
Yes.
Obviously, like the reaction is different, the style of pulling away is different. but there is like a dual natured, reactivity, or like at least like activation towards whoever is pulling away. And I've noticed sometimes with, John is a forming 5 and he's social blind and he's a 5 fix. So there's like, there is like a, he's out in the world, and then whatever has activated. Maybe he's run out of energy. Maybe he's like annoyed with something, but like
that's my life.
It can just like an inner retraction. Yeah.
Yep.
And sometimes
makes it hard to do. It's like
I don't know what that's about. Right. Right. Yeah. Well, sometimes it can be like, I don't know what provoked that. And so that can activate some of my, because I have a 6 fix also, but like that can activate some of my like 9 wanting connection, not wanting separation, 6 wanting to know like if I did something wrong. That's and then what can happen is like the 4-5 thing also is like, it's needing to retract, and literally most of the time, I would say like, God, like 19 out of 20 times, the retraction has nothing to do with me. Yeah. It's just like, some individuated thing that he's like, I need to go in and experience myself. 9. Yes. Yeah. True. Yeah. True. Yeah. Where some like thing comes and he's like retracting in, and he's like, I need to experience myself. And me as a 9, I'm just like, what's going on? Why are you retracting in? Well, like, why don't you want to be out here with me? And it's interesting because you're right. Like the 9 does do that all the time. But the way that the 9 can like lie to themselves is by saying, I'm retreating inward, but like my outer, husk body that I'm leaving with you is still with you.
Right. Yeah.
So that is like my way of my like flesh. Getting my, that is my way of like getting my space, but hopefully you're not noticing. And, that's just an anecdote, because of course that never happens. He literally notices every single time I like disappear like that. Yeah. But there is that style. 4 does have that like really tight contraction that has a different reaction on the 9 than the other way around.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. This is where I guess John and I's typing might differ a little bit, because I think I'm a much more extroverted 4 than he is. But I think my version of that isn't so much to like get silent and disappear. It's to just be kind of mean, like not, abusive mean or anything like that. Just like everything's bothering me, everything's irritating me. That my 6 fix is even more flaring up. I'm more reactive about everything, every stupid little thing that he does. Like, and I'm just like, well, and I'm angry at myself too, because I have some sense of being like, looking at myself, being like, what are you doing? And I have to sometimes, trace it back to, it's like, oh, it's because he said he wanted like goldfish instead of my food, or like it's, it might have to do with him. It might have to know, or if it has to do with him, it's so stupid and like not even important anymore that it no longer even has to do with him. Like it's nothing. It's something that maybe in another moment I would have just laughed at or glossed over, but it triggered this sense of, it's like, it's a image identity crisis where you're like, if I'm close to this, then I'm not me. I can't be close to this right now. But this person is somebody that I'm close to. And so there's this discord where you're like, how do I figure out now like what to do about this situation? And I'm like angry, and then that's what frustration is. You're chewing on this like frustration of like everything fucking sucks, even the things that don't suck. They suck. Yeah, that's interesting. Would you say that it is because as a 9, half the time when I'm if there's not a problem, let's say that this is just like I've run out of energy or I'm tired of being on, because that is a different quality than retreating because I feel like I'm going to be a problem and I'm trying to withhold the problem from like escaping and fucking up the dynamic. Would you say that, what was I going to say? Oh, that in those moments where I'm withdrawing because because I'm just tired, the underlying factor to that is like, I just want to be inside of myself and just experience myself for a while and not have to maintain all of this outer stuff. And so I wonder if all 3 of the withdrawn types happen, because that's sometimes my sense with 4 is like, it's like the sensitivity, which is provoking the reactivity and like the extra disdain, is really coming from a place of like, I just need to be able to experience my disdain and my reactivity as a connection to myself. That's it.
And it has less to do with like what's actually happening externally. But it's like, I can't, like if I'm, my sense sometimes with 4 is like, if he's out too long having to maintain other and be sensitive to other people, then that is time that he's had away from himself, which is like, slippery slope.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think I've had to learn, again, being social sexual, when both of your instincts are telling you to go outside to solve a problem.
Oh, yeah.
You're kind of like, I'm doing that withdrawn thing, and that at the same time engaging and crackling and sending like blood red fireworks into the what's around me, instead of just being like, I'm gonna go over there and just like sit with my body, feel this thing happen in my body, realize it's not that important, let it go, because the part of you that like loves the person will come back up so quickly, because if you actually love them, you're just like, oh, I don't like, I want to feel this now, I don't want to feel that thing anymore.
Of course.
But yeah, that's I've had to learn to just to do that, to just be like, oh, I think I actually just need to do this. And then at the same time, of course, because you're social, you're like sensitive to the fact that if I do that, it's going to now hurt this person's feelings.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want somebody to pull away from me for a social. That's death, right? Like don't, you know what I mean? So you're just like, well, I need, and this is, it goes in relationships, but just even anything, well, you know, with friendships, this is just a lot easier. You can just be like, hey, I'm hanging up the phone now, or like, whatever, I'm not, whatever it is, you just go away. But with your partner, you just sort of can't do that. And you don't even want to do that. But yeah, that's, I think that's how it is for me.
Yeah. Yeah. With a partner, it's different. It's different proximity. You guys know each other more fully. There's like, there's just like more, I don't want to say expectation, but it's just the I don't know, the tone of the relationship is just different with friends. There's just more, I don't know.
Well, you're not
more separation.
Like, you know, yeah. If your friend's dealing with something, at a certain point, you can just be like, okay, like that's for you.
Bye.
Now. This isn't a me thing. This is I'm not. Yeah. But with your partner, it's just like no everything. There's almost nothing that's not their business in some way. You know what I mean? Like yeah.
It's really interesting with I was going to say with 4+ social sexual, that does seem at odds in a lot of ways, because I never put together that, like, how do you be withdrawn and engaged at the same time? Like, how do you separate but be engaged at the same time? And that, I think you spelling that out like that was really like made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm still trying to even work it out myself. I mean, I kind of hate being my type just because there are no, I just want to watch somebody be me. Like, this is something that's so nice about being, like, everybody like wants to be like, I'm unique, but it's just like, well, you don't fucking get anything out of being unique if you don't have examples to really look at, because that's how you learn the Enneagram.
So
you know
true.
What I mean? Like, all this that we're talking about is like, sure, we know the theory, but we're just living it. And like, I understand Bermuda so well because I'm just like, well, they're fucking everywhere. I can watch them. And you know, even I've been talking to the Enneagram about the Enneagram to Lucas, and it's just like, he knows so many 9s and he knows so many 6s, and so he's starting to understand those types. And in some way, he's starting to understand 4, but even that's maybe more complicated because, again, he's probably seeing my 6 fix and my 1 fix and other things that he's seeing everywhere else already. But I'm trying to, I don't know, like, what is sexual 4 really, or social sexual 4 really doing? But at least it's how it feels to me, because it's helping, because the way you're describing it happening with John, I'm just like, okay, I do that, but I have this problem with not being able to completely disengage from people and the social, which I'm sure you can relate to even when you're doing withdrawn 9, where it's like, but I'm still,
totally.
There's some line, there's some string that's connected to that person over there in the elevator and this person over here, and that it's all kind of still there, but that's what I'm angry about, and that's what's frustrating. So I'm engaging with it and sort of being like, fuck you. But when you say fuck you to something, you're still engaging with it, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That would be, I mean, this could just be a total separate conversation, but but I would wonder what feels like intimacy to you in that moment. Like, is it somebody like engaging? I imagine it that, okay, let's see. I guess what I'm putting together is that it would be somebody that can like meet you at that place, maybe kind of tell you to fuck off sometimes, but also like accept that that's what's happening. Accept that, like, because, okay, I guess what's coming up for me is like, as a social type, yeah, I never want to be disengaged. I have self-pres, so I can do it sometimes, and sometimes I need to, but I never actually want to be disengaged or have like the tone of our relationship be something that doesn't feel intimate, whether that feels comfortable or not. I just always like the intimacy flow needs to happen. So I'm wondering if with you being a 4 and social sexual, which is like double engagement, but in relationship with so many 9s, I imagine that can be hard to keep that kind of intimacy flow going. I don't know if I'm saying anything.
Yeah. I don't know. What do I want? What feels like it? I think anytime something disengages from me, it's a threat. So that
Mm-hmm.
always
Yeah.
automatically, even if I've disengaged first, I still am sort of like not fully disengaging. So if a person,
Yeah, I relate.
and self-pres nines have this way of just literally being like, okay, like they take an eraser and just
Yeah.
like, you want me gone, I'll disappear. And that's like, no. You know what I mean? And then, but it also is like, okay, well, now I have to deal with the fact that like, the more that this person's engaging me, if I don't deal with what I'm feeling, then I'm actually like hurting them or making them upset. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of just a dance where I'm like trying to, again, a lot of this is like your secondary fix is huge. And a lot of this is sort of sick stuff too, where it's like, I also don't want to
Yeah, I relate.
disengage from the attachment reactivity as well.
Totally. Totally. Totally.
So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just sort of, okay, I need to figure out what, oftentimes like you really see that second fix more. It's like easier to admit that you're doing, I have a sixth fix and like hate it.
Right.
But I'm like, well, I'm doing that sixth thing or whatever. But it's like, no, it's like weird when I really sometimes get down to it. I'm like, oh God, it's just this stupid fucking 4 thing. And it's so stupid. Like, you know, the thing about the, like, I had to admit that I was just like judging and hating the person that was in front of me. That's not something that I like, but that's exactly what was happening. It wasn't whatever else. It was just that. And so I like have to just find my way back to that place. And I think what I want a person to do in that scenario is just not, I think what we all want when we're at our worst is for somebody to just be like, it's okay.
Yeah,
If you
totally.
come
Totally.
around and be like, I did this, I'm sorry, for them to just be like, it's all good. That's like,
It's
that's
all
what you
good.
want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I relate to some of that also being social dominant and having 6 secondary. There is a way that like, you know, and my like 9 can get in the way a lot because if I was 6 first, I would be able to like, you know, be kind of crazy in that 6 way where I'm like being a problem, but also need you to be engaged with the problem. And I guess, and yeah, and then the 9 gets in the way of that because 9 has a very strong, like, you cannot be a problem. And so
Right.
sometimes I think what I'm trying to articulate is that sometimes 9 can get in the way of like my 6 desire, which is I want you to be engaged with me even when I'm being a problem because that feels like
Yes.
love to me.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
keeps the like social resource coming in and it gives us like a way to kind of work through the problem while also I get to honor my reactivity at the same time.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think that's what probably Lucas goes through as well, where it's a sense of, there are times where it's both. Like there are times where I'm like 9 is winning. I've engaged or I've disengaged. He's actually completely tried to disown and swallow this whole argument that we've had so that he can just get over it. And that's a 9 thing. And then there are other times where it's like, wait, where are you going? Like, let's keep this rolling. Let's keep this attachment ball rolling, you know?
For him, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or for you? Okay, yeah.
For him, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also the benefit. That has been the benefit for me sometimes of like trying to consciously go to 6 is to like go right to the reaction, actually.
Right.
Because that keeps the like weird growing ocean of tension from continuing to grow. If I go right to 6, then I can engage with John in a lot of ways with like reactivity to reactivity.
Yes.
And that helps me like find my location basically to be able to go back to 9 and then maybe even forward to 3 to where we can deal with this in like a competent way where we can still stay engaged and stay connected. And this is like kind of an aside, but sometimes what happens to me too is like I can disengage and disconnect when I feel like things are fine. That feels like a safe way for me to like go and take my space and, you know, go and allow his space. But when I feel like the tension is, when I feel like we're not like seeing eye to, you know, and some of this is just like dumb triple attachment stuff where I'm like, we have to be great always.
Right.
But sometimes when the tension is, I guess just when there's tension and when it feels like we're not in a place where we're like stable, just in those like momentary arguments, it can be really difficult for me to both take my space as a triple attachment and allow his space that I know he needs to cool off sometimes.
Yes.
Like I know he needs to like just go experience himself, have his time with himself, and then we'll come back and work through whatever dumb tension has flared up. But yeah, that's just an aside.
Yeah, one actually other aside, it was just as you were talking, it made me think, one of the things that I think Bermuda 9s do is I think this usually happens in, like, it's like what you said, like there are things you can do when we're in a state of good things happening and that it's easier. I think that sometimes Bermuda Nines go to their six fix to poke at people when things are good. Like, I'll just say something and he'll just be like, I don't think that's true. And I'm like, okay. It's just like, it's this little contrarian brat that comes out that just like pokes me. And I don't like, at first I'm getting mad because I'm starting to be like I got 6'1" and I'm just like, what do you mean? That's what you actually think? And like, I'm realizing, no, he's not thinking. He doesn't have any solid grounding in anything that he's saying. He's just enjoying pushing up against me because this is the only time that he feels like comfortable doing it. Because it's not that, because the stakes are low, right? You know
totally.
I mean? And now I've caught on and I've been like, don't fucking do that thing.
Yeah.
Like, have an opinion or don't.
Totally, man. I relate to that so much. Yeah, it's just like the time to be just like obnoxious, you know, like this is the same time to just be obnoxious and to like annoy my four, because like when I know that everything's like actually fine, it is fucking so much fun to pick on him. He has a reaction to everything. And it's just fun to be like, haha, you're this way. No, I'm not. Like that, it's easy.
Because the nine's sitting there being like, I don't feel anything. But the tiniest thing I say, which is true, can like set a floor ablaze, like just like, you know what I mean? And you're just kind of like, But then sometimes, like, it depends, right? Like, I got 6'1". Like, sometimes I'm like, okay, this went too far. I'm really angry now. You're pissing me off. And we have an argument about it. It's just like, because it might be like something that's actually kind of hot button. And I'm like, why are we discussing this? What are you doing? Like, there's a little thing like last night where I was like, we were talking about the terrace on our old building and the new building. And I was like, oh, I think like our old building probably had about the same number of units. And he was like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, okay.
Cool.
Is that it? Why? Like, and the problem, because 6'1", you know, 6'1" is super like terrible. Like, do you know what I mean? 6'1" is bossy. I mean, again, there's positive things too. Again, I think for Bermuda's kind of like somebody who's just like, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing, this boom, like, you know what I mean? I'm making this decision, whatever. But it's also kind of like, we take so much pride in articulation and being correct. If you see 6'13", whatever, in the wild, especially like if you see them as young kids, they can't like, they just like they cannot be wrong about anything. It's so intense that like, because it's so much shame at 6, that's like, oh, I guess I don't actually know anything. You know what I mean? So anyway, but it's this sense of like, I forgot. I go on so many tangents that I forgot what what was I saying? What the fuck was I talking about?
We were going into 6 and 1 and how sometimes your partner like pushes a hot button issue and how sometimes it actually does provoke like a feeling of getting angry about something.
I think that was it. It's just because it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna say, okay, fine, you disagree with me, but like, I don't like, and so nines and Bermuda Nines do this all the time. I don't like when people disagree or have a contrary opinion, but then can't explain themselves. And this is what nines do all the time. They're just like, I'm so excited I got to say no. Now he wants to know why. That's too much. I don't even know why, and I can't do this anymore. But I'm just like, if you say no, like I just suggest something, you say no, I'm just like, oh, like sometimes not even anger. I'm just like, oh, why? Like this is my 6 fix being like, okay, I'd like more information about this. Also, because it's like, if I'm saying, oh, you can do the Chinese food thing again. Like, okay, you want Chinese food, I want Italian food. And the person's like, I don't want Italian food. And I'm like, oh, why? Because I want to know, do you not like it? Is it just tonight? Do you not want it? Did you not want it the last time we had it? Like, now I have all these 6 questions too. And they're just kind of like, it's like, no, I'm just going to disappear. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is funny because the 6'1" is very articulate, but 9, not so much 6 with me, but sometimes 9 is like, how do I say this? Sometimes for me, for 9 is like, I will just have a sense and that's it. It's just a sense. Like,
yes,
there are probably not that many number of units. I just know. You just know.
And I'm annoyed too, because it's like, like 4 is selfish. I kind of fucking want what I want. So if you have a really good reason for us to not do this, that's totally fine. Because 6'1" is like, okay, 4 is like, I want what I want. And 6'1" is like, okay, if you can convince me to do something else, that's totally, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. But if you're just like, nah, I'm like, well, no. Like,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it my way.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny. Like when it comes to like the picking on the fours, the nines picking on fours for fun. I do think John being 4 or 5, I think there is a different kind of reaction where he can
Yeah.
recognize that I'm picking on him, but also his 5 is just like, you're wrong. Hope you're having fun,
Right.
but you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like the
Yeah.
six
I'm
is
on
more
my
like we need
fucking
to be on
thought
the same
island.
page.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. We
Yeah.
both got secondary 6 wing 7, and it's just like, wait, they're like trying to find, like what like Pickering, and then I'm just like, I don't even care about this. Like, I don't give a shit about what we're talking about. Like, what the fuck? Yeah,
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I'll pick on John, and John will be like, hope you're having fun being wrong over there. And I'm like, yes, I am having fun.
Yeah.
It's bothering you, but you don't care.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because you got so we both have 6 wing 7. You have the like 5 wing 6, 6 wing 5, or like this with that area. So that's kind of like a different way of like communicating. It's probably a lot less. Let's keep doing this until we burn ourselves to death.
Yeah, there's less frustration there. Yeah. It's more just like here's my opinion. That opinion is wrong.
Yeah.
Or here's an opinion. You're like, I don't think that opinion's right. And it'll be like, well, why not? I'm like, I just don't. 6-2, regardless of the wing, 6 wing 7 or 6-5, just 6 in general, I think has like a constant hunger for learning whatever is, whatever's on the table, like whatever's being discussed. So somebody saying there's this many units. Okay, well, how do you know that? I just know. Is like, well, now you're withholding like you're withholding my ability to like get on the same page with your line of thinking.
It's like all the head types in some way want to learn, but 6 wants to learn with your help.
Yes,
and they want,
totally.
and they most importantly want to know why you know what you know to see if it stacks up to what they know. Whereas 5 is just like, I'm gonna do this research. I don't give a shit what she thinks.
Exactly. Yeah. With 6, it's what is being discussed is the most relevant information, which has the highest priority. It's like that's what's being discussed. That's like number one thing I have to learn is like what is going on right now. Yes. Where 5 is like, I don't care what's going on right now. I need to figure out, the microcosm of this part of the world. For no reason.
Yeah, it was interesting when I first started working with David and Emeka because we kind of traversed the whole head center with our typings, where we had to learn that like I'd be like, let's just call each other and like figure it out. And Emeka's like, I'm not fucking doing that. Like, don't, or like you're ping ponging on ideas or whatever that you have this and that. It's like, you had one idea, now I need to go and think about it. I'm going to deal with that. And then I'll come back. And then, of course, you come back with something really solid, which I didn't have. And David, he'd just be like, I don't care. I don't, with 7 picks, just like, what if we did this? And we're like, we talked about that last week. Yeah. He's just not.
David and his 7 fix is going to be a joke for the rest of all time.
Yeah, no, it's, and so many people think it's a 5 fix, or they used to think so. And it's just like, no.
No, it's ridiculous. Yeah, David's just here for a good time.